Christian, good to see you. Thank you so much for being with us today. That's pretty big news. We know how hard it is in states across the country for Republicans to out-register Democrats. Typically, Democrats have been much better at that. So how are you all doing this?
Well, I think when you look at the numbers, I mean, you're right. Florida has had this hard shift to the right, which has been fantastic for our state. During COVID, we were all paranoid, all these people moving here, how are they going to vote? And I think we've seen that. And really, the voter registration, I really attribute it to two different things. Number one is the leadership in Tallahassee coming out of our state capital. They are laying out, they promised a conservative agenda, and they're actually executing and passing conservative policies that voters want to see. Obviously, during COVID, we stayed open. And then we've also protected children and gone after, the indoctrination, sexualization, mutilation of our children that the radical Democrats are pushing on us. Our legislature has gone out there and defended parental rights and defended kids. And those two things, really COVID and then the education issues, have led Florida to being defined as a freedom state. And a lot of people have moved here from that. We're seeing our numbers just explode with the people that are moving here. They're registering as Republicans. So that's the first thing, is good leadership, executing conservative policies and principles. And then number two is our Republican Party of Florida. We execute very efficiently and effectively. We're very well run, probably the number one well run state party in the country. And we're going to continue both of those, but that really has led to that growth in Florida.
Yeah, I do think down in Florida, you all are doing a really good job. I'll be honest, I live in the state of Virginia, which is considered a pretty solid purple state now. And all I see is I get lots of ads from Democrats, a lot of soliciting from Democrats, and not really much from Republicans. So perhaps they should look to Florida to see how to do it. Speaking, though, of the Democrats down in your state, as I said in my open, the Democrat Party is really panicking. Case in point, Florida Democratic Party Chairwoman Nikki Fried was struggling to actually detail the reasons why Florida voters are turning out for red candidates. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
Why did Democrats lose their edge? What went wrong?
The reality is that last year in 2022, everything went wrong. Everything from not doing the work on the ground, from not doing voter registration for a couple of cycles, not having candidates that were inspiring for people to turn out.
Well, she kind of left out that she was actually a candidate on the ballot, right? She fell to best Ron DeSantis. So she says it's just a problem of getting out the vote, of getting out there on the ground. But it sounds like it's more than that you actually have voters turning because of policies.
The current Democrat chairwoman, she lost by like 30 points to a former Republican in her own Democrat primary, and who then went on to lose to DeSantis by 20 points. So you couldn't pick a more uninspiring candidate than Nikki Fried in a Democrat primary. And I think we saw that. And because of that, it's both that uninspiring, but it's also just how radical she is and the radical agenda the Democrats are pushing. I mean, they're openly calling for the indoctrination, sexualization, and if that's not enough, mutilation of children. And that's like a big part of their platform down here. They're going head to head with our governor on this culture battle. I think we're winning. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of people flee the Democrat Party. They are not going to change their voter registration by throwing $1 million at this. They need to go to the root of the problem, which is just how radical their agenda and their messaging has been. And I don't see them doing
that. One thing that Fried also said is that we have to get everyone back on the vote by mail list. So vote by mail is very, very important for them. And that leads us to the issue of election integrity. Chairman Ziegler, Republican lawmakers in Florida saw what happened in 2020 and began pushing election integrity through. There's been some debate about the bill and the final piece of legislation. Some say it got watered down and that it actually rolls back some protections of integrity and that you have less access to data from the election. But how do you feel about this piece of legislation that was pushed through by the Florida legislature?
Legislation's never perfect, and we're never really going to get to a perfect election system. We need to strive for that, obviously. I mean, I worked on election issues both in the State House and up in Congress. So it's an issue that I've been personally passionate about my whole life. But the good thing in Florida that I'll tell you is our elected officials, every year they're addressing election integrity. You see some sort of election bill addressing it, whereas other states are totally ignoring it. And by addressing it here in Florida, what that does is it lets the voters and the citizens know this is an important issue to us. We have it on top of mind. We have it top of mind, and we're going to execute and deliver. So by constantly every session doing a bill and addressing something, they are fine tuning our elections. And I think that's why Florida is the gold standard across the entire country. We're probably the #1 state. Now, does that mean our elections are perfect? No. Is there room for improvement? Yes. And I think Floridians expect that from our electeds, and they've heard that, and they're constantly, every legislative session, addressing the issues that need to be addressed that we're finding out about. So it's an ongoing battle. The citizens need to keep up the fight and keep up the outcry, because I think our electeds are hearing it and they've shown they're willing to act. We just need to make sure we let them know exactly what we want them to do year after year.
And speaking about citizen push, there's been a grassroots effort in many states, particularly in the state of Georgia, for a push for paper ballots, so to get rid of voting machines. Do you see that happening in Florida at all?
I think it's something, like me personally, I think the machines are concerning. You can impact these machines and they can be compromised. And I think most people realize that that is a possibility. Now, removing the machines, what that will do is, like right now in Florida, we actually have the vote by mails counted. I believe even before the before election day polling closes, the vote by mails are pretty much counted all the way. That's why we see our results announced so quickly. And we do get a lot of praise in Florida that how can you run a statewide election and announce results within a couple hours for the whole state? And that's because of the processes that we have. Now, if you get rid of the machines and you start going to paper ballots, it is going to take a little bit longer to count those ballots. And the public and the legislature just needs to decide what's the cost benefit of going away from the machines, going to more of a hand count, obviously with millions of ballots. But we used to do it this way. And I think elections had a lot more confidence in the past. So, it's something that is being discussed. Is there an appetite? I'm not sure. There's obviously drawbacks, but I think the benefits probably outweigh the drawbacks. And we just need to take a look at this and constantly discuss it as a state. But I have full confidence that our legislature, if the people rise up and let them know what they want to see, our legislature will address that.
Well, one thing that Florida certainly did well in 2020 was stopping the count, right? They didn't let this drag on and drag on and drag on like we saw in other states. And there was a real hesitancy for the corporate media to call the state of Florida, even though you'd gotten your count in. And it was interesting to watch. And I think Florida was a good example in 2020. And I like what you said about the grassroots effort and citizens constantly keeping a watch on this and pushing for better legislation each year, because it's not just a one-year fight. It's about making sure that our elections are clean every year, and we learn more all the time, I feel like. Thank you so much, Florida GOP Chairman Christian Ziegler, for joining us. And, hopefully some states will learn from what you all have done in Florida and implement better policies, whether it's getting out the vote or cleaning up elections.
I appreciate you having me on, and thanks for pushing these issues and informing people. It's really important. But again, appreciate having me on, and hopefully I can join you in the future.